Thank you all for joining us today. I want to introduce you my guest for this episode. It's Darryl Peak, Head of Federal Strategic Partnerships at Google. He's also an IAC board member, if you're familiar with ACT IAC. He's an ATARC board member, FCA, Bethesda board member, coach for his kids' sports, loves to volunteer. He's a dad, he's a husband, and a friend, and he's amazing. So, Darryl, thank you for being here today. For those who don't know you well or don't know you at all, explain to us who you are, where you come from.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'm glad I could be here. I'm glad I could talk to your audience a little bit. It's interesting. My upbringing was in the inner city of Philadelphia. I was the oldest of three in a single parent household, and I didn't own a computer growing up. So my interest in computer really came around video games. So I played video games growing up from, Atari to Nintendo to Super Nintendo to Sega Genesis. All those things made me interested in what my screen was doing in response to my controllers. But then I started getting more into understanding what a computer was, and that was when my mom bought a gateway, and we were using the internet on a disk from AOL. So as I started to go further, I joined a program with Lincoln University, which is an HBCU right outside of Philadelphia. And there they taught me about true engineering. And up until that time, I thought the engineering person was the janitor at the apartment buildings or the supervisor at the apartment buildings. And what happened was it just made me so passionate about this engineering concept, about solving problems, because I love to solve problems growing up. And then I had the opportunity to go to Morehouse College, which is another HBCU in Atlanta. I went there for computer science, and I knew that was going to be my spot that I was going to graduate from. And sometimes we can paint the perfect picture, but we can't predict the weather. So I had to leave early due to just financial challenges. And I came back to Philadelphia, where I spent the semester off, and I was working at the IRS, which was my first government job, and also working at a retail store, Lord & Taylor. But then the odd chance that the University of Pittsburgh had a program that let me get back into engineering. So there, I started out as a chemical engineer until I took all my chemistry classes. Then I switched to computer engineering. So really, it was about just getting into engineering, computer engineering. I used to work in the lab a lot. I joined a lot of organizations, the student body organization. I joined a fraternity as well as the National Society of Black Engineers. My fraternity is Kappa Alpha Psi. So it was just a fun experience. And then I had the opportunity to go to Lockheed Martin to start my career as a systems engineer. There I was supporting the intelligence community, working on satellites and unmanned air vehicles. But I was an intern up until that point and just learning from phenomenal mentors. So my journey has truly taken me a lot of roads. So I went from Lockheed to a smaller company, still supporting the federal government, DHS. And also State Department, in which the Deputy CIO of State Department asked me to come into DHS to support the CDM program, or Continuous Diagnostics and Mitigation Program. In that time, married a wonderful woman who had two remarkable kids, a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I have a dog too, so a little Boston Terrier. So as far as, my interest, I love to inspire. I love to make an impact. I love to just innovate and also find ways to share information, because we know it's about information sharing that makes us all better.
Wow. So, I heard a lot in there, and that's amazing. That's an interesting journey from school to school to school, and I'm familiar with that myself. So what made you pick computer science to begin with? Why did you want to get into engineering and computers, other than, I guess, was it the video games and that was it? Or was there something else that piqued your interest?
It started out with video games. I wanted to be a video game designer. So I was a coder when I first started. But actually, I used to develop a lot of websites. So the thing that I think got me passionate about technology was when I was starting to develop websites in HTML. And being able to develop those websites and understanding how code actually presented outcomes on a website was just remarkable to me. And that really got me very interested in seeing how far this computer technology could go. And also, I saw this as the future. I remember when I first went to college, Google was first came around. and I was using this search engine. And actually, at that time, many of us had Yahoo accounts.
Right.
And seeing Google and seeing how this search engine was able to pull back so much information, I'm just like, wow, this is amazing, and something is going to happen that is very transformative. So that part, and also my first job as an intern at Lockheed is I had to reverse engineer C. So I had to reverse engineer C code. So that's, going through, cleaning up the subroutines, making sure that's properly commented for like thousands of lines of code. So it just all got me interested because I knew that one, the mission of what I was supporting was so dependent upon these capabilities, but also because growing up, it was just always something that I felt was a little out of reach. So beyond the times that I went to school to play Oregon Trail or some other cool game, I just wanted to get back engaged. So that's what really got me interested in computers.
Wow, yeah. If you were doing coding, then you definitely know Google, because Google's every coder's friend for finding out what the heck does this code do.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've been around a while. You've done a few jobs, right? You've mentioned DHS, you mentioned State Department, you mentioned Google, and I know you know your stuff, right? I've seen you at speaking engagements. You're a fantastic speaker.
Appreciate that.
We had you, I think, at an event the other day for our associates program for ACT-IAC, and
yeah, that was fun.
So the thing that, I mean, so you've seen a lot of things. So what do we do today that you go, man, why are we still doing that? What or why are we not doing that differently? What could we change in IT that would be for the better?
It's interesting. The idea of pilots and proof of concepts. I think that there is something to be said about the project management approach or agile project management approach, where you start to understand what the strategy is and start to create quantitative outcomes from that strategy, and which your pilots can help you meet those outcomes. And then as you explore newer technologies, that you find some kind of incubation approach, which actually helps you fuse innovation into it. And also, the transition to practice was always something that I found challenging within agencies, is that we have a lot of research and development that happens, but that transition to practice sometimes doesn't happen as smoothly, even if you are working with the startup community, or if it's something that new, or if it's something from the InQtel area. So I think the transition to practice was one. Management of programs and understanding and working towards those outcomes was another, and then feedback from the user community. A lot of times we would have PMs or people on the project making assumptions about what would be in the best interest of the customer, versus us having that time and utilizing human-centered design in order to engage that customer in a meaningful way. Therefore, creating personas, being more mindful of various capabilities, and also being able to not continue. And that is one of the ones that I'm like, why do we keep doing this? Is when do we say enough? When is enough, right? Sometimes programs just hold on and they have one or two users, but it's like, no, this hurts and depends on this system or this outcome or this website. And it's like, no, they don't. They're just, they just never decided to cancel or no longer use it. So those are some of the things that I think about, is really around governance of IT, being able to quantify it through metrics and measures, and high value metrics and measures. Transition to practice, and being able to take research and put it into production, and also how to scale in a meaningful way by using feedback from your customer base.
Man, you're making me go think inside my head. It was a great loss to the government for you to move to industry. Don't get me wrong, you're going to do great things for the government from industry, which I greatly appreciate, because our industry partners are key most of what we get done. I mean, like where I work at my agency, all of our IT is outsourced. We're just management, trying to, roll the reins and set the strategy and get, talk to our customers to make sure we got the right alignment with the business strategy. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been for federal agencies myself. I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of things that we need to, stop doing and take some of those next steps.
Right. Well, and the other thing about it, and the fact that, and I'm, I always appreciate that you have your military experience as well as civilian experience, is that succession planning is sometimes not as much of a focus in civilian as it is in DoD. So you don't have folks that are developing certain skills in order to get to the next level, which often creates challenge in their awareness of certain fundamental principles in order to lead people, in order to do the management and oversight. And also, one of the things I know about DoD that is very much a focus is acquisitions and how stringent the acquisition process is, but also ways to make sure that you are getting the most value for the investment that's being made. And that's one of the things that I also think is that government employees should have acquisition experience, management and oversight experience, and also governance that actually is able to take on legislation and guidance and policy and apply that to the greater agency. So that was one of the other things that I thought about when I think about, folks that are doing excellent work in government is not only that they have domain expertise, they also have some of those fundamental principles that they can always pull on if needed in order to get things done.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, my boss smartly has pushed forward an initiative for all of us to do our, PPM through FATOS and through DAU, right? So we have that program management experience. Even though we're a small agency, we have 300 people in our entire agency. Doesn't mean that those principles aren't valuable in how you manage your programs and ensure you get the best value, right? In fact, it's more important that we get the best value for our dollar because we don't have any dollars to waste.
So. Right, absolutely. And you know what? And at some point, I'm definitely sure that the group would love to hear about your, DoD experience and transition into the civilian space, because that part I think is just as important as someone saying I'm transitioning from the civilian space to private sector, is saying like going from that model, that structure where it's very mission oriented, very structured succession planning. You are giving a lot of responsibility at a young age. It's like those things are so many lessons learned from that.
Absolutely. So then, okay, so transitioning, where do you see yourself? So you've done amazing. You've had this amazing career path and schooling and where you've ended up, and like many of us, it sounds like right place, right time, right? We always, but you gotta take advantage of that right place, the right time, right? It doesn't always work out. You gotta position yourself for it. And I've seen that with you in terms of how you've been able to reach out there and say, no, this is what I want to be, and this is what I want to do. Just in the short time in the few years I've known you, it comes across very well. So where do you see yourself going in your career from here? Not trying to tell Google you're leaving, of course, but like, what are some aspirations, right? Every time, good leaders set aspirations for where they want to go, right? So where do you see yourself going?
Absolutely. So one of my quotes that I love, and it comes from the former Secretary of State Colin Powell. He says, "Luck is when opportunity meets preparedness." That's right. And I used to think about those words from the general and say, okay, well, what is my plan? So I created a plan a long time ago that helped me kind of look at where I would like to be. My aspirational goal, or my big, hairy, audacious goal, the BHAG, was to become a cabinet level CIO. And it still is, at some point. And to be able to really help agencies adopt technology in a mindful and meaningful way, but also to help deliver on the outcomes of the mission. So that was always one of my BHAGs. But the other side of it is to continue to be an advisor to government executives as a means of continuing to improve transformation of the government. But also I like to mentor startups. So I have certain roles where I can mentor startups, and that has also been fun. So working with the venture capital community, working with private equity firms, as well as with certain accelerators, all of them, it's almost like seeing it from a different viewpoint, right? Because once you've been in, you're like, you really don't get these things about government, and it's being able to share that story, which helps them have the passion and the fire about why we do what we do. Government service is not about, it's not as glamorous as people may think. It's about the mission. It's about the outcome. It's about something greater than yourself. That's why there are so many veterans that do come to public service and to continue after they retire, is because it's a ode to service. So to me, government CIO, working with the venture community, and potentially being a professor. That was also one of my BHAGs, is saying, after it's all said and done and everything else is pretty much wrapped up for me, I would love to be a professor, because it's all about sharing, right? Information sharing is one of my values. So being able to do that for the next generation is important, because it's not about us at a certain point. It's about the next generation. So that's where I try to invest my time and energy.
Oh, that's a great message to leave on. Investing in the future generation. I really appreciate that about you, Darryl. So I just want to thank you for joining me today. Thank everybody for watching our episode, and look forward to seeing where you go. I can't wait to work for you when you're a CIO in government.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. You know what? I appreciate the time. Thank you. And you know what? You are doing phenomenal work. So thank you for your service. Always enjoy partnering with you and look forward to doing it again.
Fantastic. Thank you.